Good afternoon. This is we'll call to order the Monday, November 29th meeting of the Ogdensburg Bridge and Port Authority Finance Committee. And the first item on our agenda is to review the October 2021 financials. And do we have any comments before we ask the CFO to identify high points and low points? Patty, would you run through the?
Okay, as of October 31st, our accounts receivable were at $280,000. 90% of that is either current or 1 to 30 days. So we've gotten some payments in, and some all of the salt payments have come through. So our AR will be down a little bit now. If you come down to accounts payable regular, that number does look quite large. But if you look at our notes on page 2, the first three, the first four, first three are all project-related payables. So they're not just regular payables, and as soon as reimbursements come in, they're being paid. The MALZEF project for $360 was paid. The Excelis insurance was paid. The Tiger reimbursement is going to be reimbursing GPI for approximately $77,000. We'll be putting in another 10, so that will be paid. That was actually paid yesterday. Yes, yesterday.
Friday.
Friday. As soon as we receive our CRSSA funds, the MB company invoice will almost disappear, and Ascent will be paid off. So we're not in bad shape. We've got all of the project monies coming in as they're supposed to. Any questions on the statement of financial position? I thought we might want to spend more time on the budget. So if there aren't too many questions,
Yes, that would be excellent. I thought it was interesting to take a look at the October bridge revenue. Does this reflect that there's some openings on the bridge?
Yeah, I just got numbers at 2 o'clock today. Since the 7th of November, we've been running around 82%, and we're
Down 82%.
down 82%. Well, now we're in this period since the opening, to give you an idea,
yeah,
we're down 62%. So
Certainly
we've come down by 20%.
Yeah.
And then actual revenue compared to last month or this month or this time period last year was doubled. And then it was revenue compared to 2019 was roughly a third of what it was for that period. Mm-hmm. So that 33 matches up pretty much with what we're seeing in traffic. Right. Actually, we're seeing a little more revenue because you get more for trucks and things than the actual count. So I would say we're getting closer to 60%, which on Wednesday that the COVID testing, is it tomorrow? Yeah, It's lifted. So then we'll know more. There might be a little bump you'll see in November's numbers. You'll get an overall kind of a blending of all that because that first week of November was back when the restrictions were in. Mm-hmm. But we are seeing, we're definitely seeing, it could always be better, but it is an improvement.
And I know that it's still quite speculation to plan revenue for next year, but this is starting to probably permit somewhat higher projections on.
Yeah, when we get into the budget, that'll be a major part of what we'll need your input on to see kind of we've been with each other for 2 weeks back and forth, and depending on the different news stories we hear, we go up and down.
Change
So,
it.
so we'll have a discussion of that when we get around to bridge revenue.
Patty, I would turn it over to you to guide us. Are we ready to start talking about the budget?
Yep.
Good.
Okay, the first budget you received, the budget you did receive, has the small negative balance. Remember that this is a draft. It's only our first shot at this. And as Steve said, we have been going back and forth with deciding what numbers might be able to be adjusted up or down. One of the things we have looked at was the bridge toll revenue that was at 2.8 on the budget. We took a very hard look at that and came up with, I pulled last year's report that we get for the bridge traffic. That only gave us the actual amounts received for autos, but I was then able to back into all commercial traffic other than autos. And we were able to adjust up the number, and I have a new budget for everyone. That will show you the new budget number for thanks, yeah. To show you the new budget number against the original budget number. This is going to assume 60% of 2019-20 income. We had started with 55. With the increase in the optimism we're seeing, we did decide to go to 60.
Mhm.
Other than that, we actually reduced all of the maintenance figures just a little bit. And we took a very hard look at the CARES Act reimbursements, and we added $10,000 a month to the original amount. Doing that gives us a positive $35,428 for the year.
Patty, I just need you to clarify the change in assumptions on the CARES Act. I'm not following it. Probably you explained it clearly, but I didn't try.
We had put into the budget $135,000 a month
Right.
for reimbursements. We can probably get about 145.
You're just talking an average.
An average.
It may go up and down. You may, depending on what's at different times of the year, you have added expense, and others that, like utilities and stuff, fluctuate. So I think, Patty, you came up with that's an average.
Yeah. A lot higher fuel costs in the winter. We've had fuel up quite a bit anyway.
That's right.
For the airport. We've also had a number of, we had to do a mandated upgrade on the fuel trucks called a Scully system, I believe it is. But those are additional expenses that we hadn't expected. So I think we can safely see a reimbursement of about $145,000 a month.
Mhm.
So where does that put us at the end of this fiscal year coming up with the CARES Act?
We would be spending 1.7 of the CRSSA and the HEROES Act, and that's probably all of it.
So it'll take you to end of March of 2023, right?
Yes.
So you're looking at it from here on out, you're looking at.
You have about another year
15,
of-
14 or 15 months
Mm.
roughly. But to your point, when you were asking about our recent grant that we got, maybe some of those funds may be used to supplement things that we normally do with, because that would be, that might supplement that. I haven't seen the grant or anything yet to know.
It's talking about the 5.1 million through the infrastructure bill that was passed.
Yeah,
We're not sure what we can use it for.
Mhm.
and it's roughly going to be over 5 years. So
Right.
you figure call it a $1 million for 5 years, on or above our normal $1 million.
Right.
But we don't know whether that's strictly for what it's, what it can be used for. And what I'm saying, there might be an overlap in that, you have a choice of CARES Act or that may help us. We're not going to assume that, but
But at this point, you haven't used any of that particular grant money?
no, we haven't touched any of it because I haven't even gotten the formal
Right.
paperwork
That's
on
right.
that. But
I think that's what makes sense.
we didn't really talk about any of that.
That's not included.
That's not
Nothing is that
included
in there.
here at
We're
all.
just assuming
You know,
that you can't use it. It may help us on a capital side of things.
maybe we put up a shell building.
Or we could
Well-
pay off one of the small loans at the airport.
Sure.
That would be an important part.
Yeah.
And then when we talk about, there's a capital sheet in this that we can talk about, and I can tell you our thinking on that.
Okay,
So that addresses some of what you're talking about.
it's just my long-term concern that if things don't improve to what we're saying, if it's not 60%, it's less than that, and the traffic at the airport isn't
Mhm.
as much as we would like it to be, what can we rely on after March or April of 2023?
Yep.
But not knowing anything about that infrastructure bill, what we can and can't use.
Well, I think that it's really a serious consideration to use one-time money for one-time expenses rather than building the operating budget up because you've got one-time money. All that said, doing something like hiring a person for development and so forth, I think that is such an important thing to do that we almost need to take on that long-term commitment against what we hope will happen with revenue.
Mhm.
You can't wait
No,
on that.
no.
So there are axioms that make a lot of sense until you get to the specific case, and then you look at the specific case and say, no, we got to do it. And it's how you grow. It's how you get a healthy organization, is to take a little risk, but
Well, just an overall comment that I have to make, that there's more meat in here than I've seen in a lot of years. And that even goes for, you'll see capital on there. If you recall, we haven't done anything in capital here for
that's right.
3 to 4 years.
Yeah.
And when we got to the bottom line and Patty's throwing out numbers, I go, is that with capital? And she goes, yes. And I'm going, I mean, it's a relief. It's not, it's not where we should be, but we're on our way there. But there's a lot more in there. And then to go to your point, that position is funded through this. I mean, and there's other things that we've taken on that if we stayed in a mode that we've been in for the last 2 years, well, we could make that line look much better. But we've decided to take on those things and kind of, when we talk about reaching out with the 60% on the bridge traffic, some of my thinking in that was that it's not like we're going into our budget year next week. We're going to have 3 months going in there, and hopefully that gets to a point so that when this starts, maybe you're going, okay, we're getting close to 50, so that average through there will take us. That's kind of our thinking on that. So.
Well, I'm game.
So do you want to talk about some specifics, or Patty, you, or however you,
Well, I was going to let you handle the capital.
did you want to go there with that?
Yeah,
Okay, so in your, there is a capital sheet, it's toward the back, I imagine, right?
I think so.
Yeah, here we go.
It's a little back.
May I take just a moment before
Sure.
we move into a new topic? It appears to me that in our October statement of expenses, I'm looking at airport expenses, and we're running about $300,000 above budget on expenses. And I know that part of that would be purchase of fuel, which I think is in maintenance expense.
No, it's on fuel. It's $116,000.
Yep, I see that. Yep.
So if you take that off, you're down to about 225.
And we're way high on maintenance. And I wonder, is that kind of airport expense assumed in the budget proposal for the new year?
K&T striping is in that, and that is not something we do every year. That's
Okay.
48,000 of that 92 overage.
Yep.
Then we're buying, the board approved the purchase of New Deal de-icing in 6-packs, and they're $13,000, almost 14,000 a pop.
Mhm.
We've purchased one. We're not bulking up on them. So there's another, that's about 68 plus the American. They've purchased from American Rock salt for the parking lot, et cetera. So they've got a little pile out there. That's $68,000.
And roads and runway sand too.
Yeah,
There's a specialized runway sand that we pay a premium on, that you've got to have a certain sieve analysis on it.
Mhm. Mhm.
we have about $14,000 in automotive expenses that would be under maintenance. That's just a lot of repair and maintenance of all the equipment that's out there.
Mhm.
So that brings us up to 82.
And unleaded and diesel fuel for our equipment is under automotive. It is in all of them, in the bridge, in the port. You see automotive, and like Patty was asking me, I think we were like 80-something thousand for maintenance expense at the port. But we use a lot of diesel fuel, so that's a good part of it. But like I tell her, in all of our rates, that diesel fuel is reimbursed, even though you don't see it directly. You don't see it, an income part of that. Does that help you, Chris?
Well, let me ask probably the same question, but a little differently. If we take a look at the airport expense this year to date through October, that's only 7 months, and it's at $1,249,000, and the budget for 12 months, and that's on this sheet of paper I'm looking at, is $1,339,000. So why are you able to budget less per month for next year than you did this year?
Well, I guess I'm trying to.
might as well let it go.
Huh?
Might as well let it go. Why it's up.
Have there been some expenditures that you were able to make this year because of the grant situation that
Maybe in a
will
while,
not recur?
see what happens out there is that, financially, you're backed by a loan, and there's a mentality that, as opposed to the rest of the organization where, I don't have a backing for everything out here. So that the tendency, you got to get in the mode of, my guys are still in austerity around here.
Yeah.
And I think that feeds into some of that. That's why I'm saying we're kind of endeavoring to tighten down things, because you can see in 15 months without CARES Act, just us on our own, or all alone, we're back to supporting the airport from all the other organizations or all the other entities.
Yeah.
So it's just, I guess the budget's is something we're gonna work on to try to meet, rather than you're gonna have to live with some things.
So it sounds to me as if, and let me try to state this in a way that doesn't affect individuals. Sounds to me as if some sort of a policy that requires prior approval before major purchase commitments are made might be in order.
We've discussed that.
And if there were some dollar figure on that, let's say required approval before anything over $1,000 or anything, I'm probably in the wrong magnitude. Maybe you need to move the decimal point.
Right. And,
No,
I can say two things about that. One thing with the airport, it's extremely safety driven.
Yeah.
As opposed, that isn't to say we don't care here, but I mean,
Sure.
if a light goes out
Understood.
down at the port, I can get to it next week or next month, or get me a price on that. What can we do there with some things that you can't substitute?
Yep.
And in fairness, you have to do it. So those things are a requirement. And then I don't want just people that are parts changers. You need to think about everything you're doing out there, and that's just, not trying to pick out individuals, but if you're just replacing things just because without giving any thought to an alternative, or is it necessary?
Yeah.
And that's kind of something that's kind of our hope for that budget number.
But I didn't hear a lot of things in the overage there that had to do with, I use the word maintenance, right? I mean, striping does, but you have to do the striping.
Right.
but that's a one-off and we won't see that again for 2 years.
I understand that, but that's what I mean.
You're right.
Trying to find out what real expenses you're actually in control of there, right? That's
Right. Well, for example, the chemicals, 13, okay, there's a safety factor in that, but also there's a judgment factor in that. I mean, if you're saying, I'm not saying you, but if we're doing something where, the runway's got a little snow on it, and you sweep it and it looks a little slippery, but the sun's coming out and you don't have a flight for there, and every aircraft that's coming in between that doesn't require that. You don't go, I'm not saying they're doing that, but that's the type of thing it's a difficult thing. You don't want to err on the side, you need to err on the side of safety, but there's things that you have, you can't just say, there's no consequence because I have money for the next 15 months that I can keep going on that. And the reason I can say that is that we're in that mentality here, and I know I've been like that for a number of years now. So, and my guys are like that, and I think up there we've got to institute a little bit more restraint, because the end game here, if we keep going and that money dries up, is going to be real difficult for us if things don't improve.
Right.
And I know David's been very assertive on things that we need to work at there, between rental cars, parking, and all of that kind of. When we're looking at, we've talked about different things that we may have to address as far as how we move forward based on what the air travel landscape looks like.
Well, it sounds to me as if there is a question about whether or not the philosophy of operation is working in terms of control of expenses, and as if you've got an approach you're taking to it. And so I would propose that roughly at the beginning of the new fiscal year, that there be a point that where that's seriously addressed.
Mhm.
And see whether or not things are coming along. You know, you're making progress. Give what you're doing a while. And it's my experience that sometimes things turn around and sometimes they don't. And you want to, at some point, do about it if they don't turn around.
Right, and I think, just to go back to, your question was why.
Yeah.
I think part of that is to tamp some of that down and to be a little more focused on what we spend out there and then how we use our time.
Sounds good. I've finished my interruption.
No, that's fine.
Thank you very much.
Has everybody got the capital expenditure sheet in front of them?
Would you show me which one that, what that looks like?
Right near the back, I think it's like
Yeah,
2 pages from the
It's in a
back.
landscape.
Okay.
I think it's the one, it's that one,
I think
yes.
Yep.
That's it. Yep. Some of these we left on there because I wanted to make you aware that they're still out there, and I can talk a little bit about that. But with our man lift this year, we've kind of been able to hold off any major roof repairs, but it's a slate roof. It needs experts. And I've had this in here for a number of years and just haven't either been able to fund it or mostly haven't been able to fund it. But this year we did make some improvements at the dormers, and that will get by. So, I just wanted to put that one out there. At the border station, part of our lease agreement was there was some border station improvements that they agreed to, we would take care of over a period of 2.5, 3 years. We're in year 3.
Mhm.
We replaced 2 HVAC units that failed back 3 years ago on the main building right in July. And we had a temporary system set up we took an AC unit that was spare, and we got by with that. But we're going to have to replace those this year. We have lowered those, right? Is that number?
We're going to put in 50,000 this year and defer 25. So that should get us at least 1 unit.
And maybe maybe as a bid package, we will see some savings to where we can do 2 with maybe spending a little bit more. But I do know they should be replaced at the same time, but we've lowered that just to kind of control some of our costs. So that number should be 50, right, Patty?
Yes.
Wait a minute.
Okay.
So one's gonna cost at least 50.
The one that we had in the main building, I think that all ran about 45,000 3 years ago. So it might bump over that.
Okay.
And I'm not sure, these might even be slightly smaller units than the other ones, but I kind of lumped them all together.
So if you leave the 75 in there, you could take 25 for next year, or you're just gonna reduce it down to 50?
We're going to reduce it down to 50.
We hope to, yes.
But what if
That was
you get a bid for, let's say, 78 for 2?
I will come to you and you'll straighten me out because you did that on that other HVAC unit. I'm thankful, but I'm so used to living with, we'd be just taking chances. That's all. If I said you could air condition half the building, we'll take our chance on the other one. But you're right. I do think, that 75 is not conservative number. That's
Good number.
we'd be able to,
For 2.
we'd be able to do 2 with 75. I'm thinking it probably, it'll come somewhere between 50 and 65, but I throw in 75. But when Patty and I were re-looking at this after the insurance thing, I looked at everything and that's another, well, we can, because we don't want a deficit budget, with all that. We also could, as in previous years, you could totally ball up this piece of paper and
Right.
we'd be that much, but it's not the time.
See, I feel we've made a commitment for that building
Mhm.
that we'll do this. This is the third year. I just assume leave the 75 in there. Hopefully that will come close to getting the 2. We received good rental income from that building. We've made a commitment, and I think we should honor that. Let's do the right thing and leave that in there and buy 2. Just my opinion.
Dave?
You're trying to make a budget balance.
Yes.
I'm with Sam. I mean,
No,
you gotta do the right thing, but if we ultimately have to figure that out later, I don't know whether you want to budget it or figure it out, I guess. But
to Sam's point about commitments that we make, we get funding or we get income and it doesn't always stay where it should stay. You know that. But to his point, that's what should happen.
well, that's correct, but that's part of running a business, right?
Right.
So, really, I'm not too concerned about that per se, but
Okay.
I'm more about, we've done pretty good in keeping our commitments lately, way better. Right? So I would say we continue to try to go down that path. But we got, we got to figure out, if you're gonna make 75, we got to figure out what's going on.
Okay. So we'll just keep, we'll have to look for, we'll see what,
That
maybe
might mean
25.
Figuring out where we find 25. Over here.
Okay.
Yeah.
On each of the inspection booths, there's a split system. A couple of those that have been used, like in lanes 1 and 2, are reaching the end of their useful life. So they run somewhere between around 7,000. So I know I have 5 in here, but I think maybe you might end up getting 4 for 21,000 if you bid that out with that. But we need 4 for sure, but 21 should cover that. And that's just replacing the unit on the top of everything else is there. It's just you're replacing a new condenser and a whole new, it's really a small rooftop unit. So that's another part of our commitment. Yes, and there's 4 light posts that they're rusting pretty good. And they were pointed out in one of our inspections, so we'll look at replacing them. But we did replace all the heads with LED up there. So that should be just a matter of swapping them out. At the port, just at a minimum, we've got to do some milling and paving of the main access road coming in. It's really on one side. It's just water keeps sitting in there and it's cracking and breaking up. We need that milled and paved. And then when you going down the main part of the port there's an area that just needs to be milled and topped again. 30 will get us by. We could use a lot more. Maybe we could do some of that in a grant where there's some things that some port grant applications that are coming out. We could maybe put, or we even get that funded through that. So that's kind of where we're going with that. The Harper deepening project has been went out to bid, and you see that that number is increased dramatically. That's based on the bid that they got was 1.5 times what they expected. So instead of having a commitment of roughly, I believe it was a 10.8 was the project, it's now 27. And you can see under outside funding, we're still talking to the state. They've already committed an additional 8 million. If everything had come on budget with the bid, we'd be fine. But we're looking for another 15 to 17 million dollars based on the way the Corps set up the project.
Mhm.
So that's we're going to need help either from the federal side or the state. And right now, state's already made a commitment to the original project, but we haven't heard anything back on what they intend to do or if they will give additional money. The one thing to understand too, the Corps is limited. It's their project, but they're limited to only spending $10 million by law on our project. So originally they were committed to 6 million. They can go up on the 17, they can go up only to 10 and the rest is on us, which, you're running the whole thing and then you come back to us, but I don't want to complain too much.
So what we've heard about the funding for the airport out of the infrastructure bill, we haven't heard anything
About ports?
about ports or bridges.
Mhm.
So it's hard to say if we'll be able to move forward with that funding or not, because we don't know what it will be.
Do you
There's
anticipate,
discussion that there will be some. We have no idea how much.
that will clarify, for instance, over the next 6 months or so?
Oh, yeah.
And it may not, we may not have direct with the federal, it may be the federal's hands the money to
Well, the
DOT
state,
or the
yeah.
state, and then we have to apply for that.
Yeah.
But, this is exactly what that's meant to
Right.
fund.
Yeah.
One thing too, though, the monies that we do have committed are good till 2024, end of 2024. So there's time. It's just a matter of, and then you've got to take into part of the reason that went up. You got to take into what's happening with COVID, with steel prices and things like that. And so when we come to bid our project, which was around 13.2, we could get surprised there. Although we've made contingencies in there too, but the longer it drags on, we're going. Come February, we'll be going on 2 years just talking about getting the funding and moving forward from when it almost died. I think about it, yeah. Any questions on that?
No.
I'm not willing to say that that project is dead. It's just a matter of waiting to see how it all comes out of the federal funds.
Mhm.
And if it goes to the state, and then what does that mean? There's fewer ports around the state than there are airports, so
Mhm. Yeah.
maybe that'll work in our favor.
Mhm.
So let's hope it happens in 2022 or 23.
You see the P2 roof repairs, that's just a stopgap measure. We do have a grant out there. It's another Chrissy grant for rail replacement and roof replacement of P2. So that 6,000 actually could go away if we were to find out that we got grant money in that project. It's been 3 or 4 months since we put in for that, and I think it came out to like 1.2 request, and I think the roofing was somewhere around 800,000. And then we would replace all of the rail that's actually out by the port dock to make that all a heavier rail that currently right now
It's about 110 now.
it's 90 and it's got to go to, is it 110? Yeah, it's got to be heavier rail that we've done on the rest of that, but that's been overlooked.
Mhm.
The 92 flatbed that's used in the summertime, it's used out on the bridge, and in the winter time, we put a plow on it and we put up drop-ins. We put a sander on top. It's just you see them sometimes, it's a flat rack, you just drop it in there and you plug it into but we use that as our sander down there. Well, we got it going this year, but it won't last there, so that we put in to replace that sander down there. You see the Chrissy grant. I've come to you with 2 projects already, though we've already committed to the loader, and we're still in finding out whether the low bid will take that. There's a conveyor, we got a single bid on that one, but they're asking to see if it can be funded up front, and we can't do that, but we've got a question into the Federal Rail if they can pay up front. I don't see any hope in that. We may have to throw that one out and rebid it.
Mhm.
But we've been having trouble getting bidders for these conveyors. But anyway, we won that grant for $1 million. 200,000 of that is committed, or we've got to come forward to. You were aware of that, but we want to make sure that grant is still open till the end of 2023. So we still got time, but one out of the 4 pieces has been bid and going forward.
Mhm.
On the bridge, we took out foundation and
Still there.
it is?
Mhm.
Oh, you didn't take it out?
Mhm.
All right. Well, generally, instead of throwing this into our maintenance budget, we've kind of separated things like concrete and steel, and most of those are material as part of capital improvement. So you'll see on there for foundation concrete repair and structural steel repair, that we go and buy steel. A lot of this will be on the Canadian side for next year. So we do that in-house. But years ago, they separated this out into a capital rather than just bury it in the maintenance part of things. Any questions on that? We've listed kind of the phases of the major bridge repairs, just so you'll have an idea of what's still out there, and kind of, if we were to pull one of those phases out, say we did get a certain amount, say 20 million, we would look at those and say, where does this work best? I think if we were to get something right away, we'd like to take care of the Canadian approach and we'd almost do the flip only in Canada of what we did. So that was this was at 19.8, and that project's complete. We'd figure if we got 20, we do try to do the same thing over there, and that would really bring the bridge up to really in real good shape. The suspension span and the US approach are in top shape. They still need work, but on the other side, bridge decking and painting of the US or the Canadian approach would be my priority.
Mhm.
If money were to come to us right away. But anyway, I listed those out there, and basically you see phase 7 would be the one that we'd kind of like to see if we had outside funding.
Mhm.
Is that making sense? Okay. Commerce Park.
Before you go on.
Yeah.
The harbor deepening and the dock wall extension and all the major bridge repairs, those are all ready to go. So if we got the money tomorrow, we could go, right? It's all, everything's
Yeah.
shovel ready.
Yeah, all of those have, final design is done on the harbor deepening, and I think we're at 85% toward final design on the dock wall. The The reason we've held off is we want to see, we were hoping to see the final, what the contractor was going to do for the harbor deepening, and then we could work ours in order to maybe save some money there the right way. So that's why we're at 85. And I've just told them,
Right.
let's not waste time. So we meet once every 2 weeks, and we're really not doing anything on that side until we know more.
But if there's restrictions on any funding that it has to be shovel ready, you have to spend it within a calendar year or something, we're ready to go.
We're ready. Just so you know, in 2008, when there was what was that program called that the Obama administration did when everybody had to be shovel ready?
Oh.
Well, we did,
I know what you mean.
we spent out of our own money $450,000, and we did the whole bridge design, all of those phases and everything. The bridge doesn't change, and it ages, but it doesn't change as far as measurements and things like that. So
Right.
we have those drawings, and that's saved us an awful lot of money. So to answer, we're done. We have that. You might have to do different things for permits, but as far as the bridge drawings, we already have them. So
Sure.
we're ready to go on any one of those phases.
Good.
Commerce Park, there's building 1 requires a normal size HVAC unit, and then building 11, that's the one we want to start on. I think those in the older part of that building, there's 8 there, and we're going to start taking the worst of them and get them repaired or replaced. So there's 3 units that are going to go in Commerce Park. Tree removal, we may be doing some of that this winter. We've taken one real good shot at the worst of those, but there's a lot of work that's got to be done along the trail, and the road going up there, it escapes me the name of it right now. Anyway, we're aware of that, and we're going after that. Roof replacement, I'm just making you aware that building 11 isn't in real bad shape, but age-wise, the older part of it's going to come to, if we had the money, I would recommend doing it, but we're fine. But anyway, you see in there that generally in the 20 to 22 year range, I want to replace that, but we'll be fine for another year. We need some work on the walking trail. So some of that is crack sealing and maybe doing some repair there. We put in roughly $6,500 there. The child care initiative, we put in a number of 200,000 to show that our commitment to get started with that. And out of that 200, when the committee meets, I may ask them the beginning of next spring, find out where we're at, but start preliminary design. Just to have, I mean, we can talk about it, but in that 200,000, some of that would be the initial design work.
Hopefully by then we'll know maybe where our funding will be coming from and how much.
You good with that, Dave?
Yep.
Okay. Like I said, I knew there was a lot of money on our side in there, and when Patty added that up, said we could do it. You did say that.
Too late now, eh?
Right.
Must have been drinking good egg now.
What are you putting that vanilla milk?
Mm-hmm.
And I've also put in $40,000 for preliminary engineering for a warehouse and office space in the park.
Super.
And that, the one thing about that is you can start that design and maybe be ready for May or March, excuse me, April or May of 2023. So a lot of good bidding comes out is if you can get things in December and January. So depending on where we're at, or I have 2 tenants that are interested, no commitments, but also the back and forth, but I don't have anything to show them. In the sense that what I have financially, I can't make any commitments there, but we're working on it. They would like to see space sooner than later, but I think we'll all have to be patient and see how things shake out. But if you had a commitment from a broker or a tenant over there for 5 or 10 years, that would certainly ease the decision to move forward with it.
That's a tough one. I think we're at the point right now we have no available space. So if somebody comes to us, we could lose it, but who knows where. So I think that's pretty important that we plan on doing something within a year or so. And Chris, like you said earlier about the economic developer, hopefully when that person is on board and functioning, we'll need that building in 23.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I was looking at a little bit more than 20,000, but I have to live with that.
Well, we can talk about that too. We really need to decide, when you talk about design, is it going to be cookie cutter of what we've done before? Is it going to be, a medium height storage or things like that? But we can get into detail with, depending on who may be interested, or we've done pretty well with the additions I've done with here. So it's not written in stone, but I just put that down as kind of a placeholder. At the airport, the AIP, these are things that are already committed. The terminal area drainage and the Malls F. That is, that 24 is our portion of that, the whole project there. Then recently you heard that we got that aviation security grant for just a little over $1 million. Well, our portion of it is 101. And I haven't seen that one either. I haven't seen the paperwork on that. So, but we have a number of things already that when we applied for the grant, that we know what that was going to do, was going to upgrade some of the terminal security. I believe it was to get a new truck for a patrol truck and snowplow. There's a number of things on that list with that. And then we are going to hold off a little bit to see how that meshes in with the possible airport grant. We don't want to be putting generators in the wrong place and then have to tear them right back out. So some of that we'll have to, it's more of a logistics thing. And the water and sewer line extension, that would be something we would probably do, either an airport grant or another grant out there. That was the number we've always used, but given the closeness that we are to the new force main for the Oswegatchie, that may drive our price may come down a little bit there, because all we'll be having to do is put in a pump station and I don't know, maybe 1,000 feet of a force main. So that may reduce that. And then the water line would be something there that on other projects we may tie into, but we'll go out for grant funding on that.
Steve, Just a 30-second or 60-second aside, speaking of water mains. I was in the Morristown Town Building today. You know that they're pulling a causeway out that goes across Morristown Bay. And you're probably, you would understand that the sewer line and water lines ran across the causeway. And their plan was to put new lines in, get them operational before they, well, today Morristown has no water.
I saw the boil of water thing.
No water. No, there's no water. Not even bad water.
Nothing to boil.
Nothing to boil.
No one.
None. Somehow the sequence got out of whack. Can you imagine that?
So nothing in the water tank,
Well,
or is it?
I'm not sure whether I'm being told that the water tank is empty or whether I'm being told that there's nothing going into the water tank. But I guess I'm being told that I think the people in the community have no water.
Wow.
Fortunately, I'm outside the water district, so.
Water everywhere.
I'm done.
A lot of garden hose like that.
Running across the
Right
bay.
into Chris's.
Fritz's house. Wow.
The upgrades to the two railroad bridges are on there. We've had them for a while. We've finally gotten squared away with our engineers, and we have until the end of 2022 to get those projects done. They've been on here 4 to 5
For a
years.
long time.
And COVID really put a hurting on going forward with that, but we need to get those out and bid and get that resolved, because it is becoming an issue on the railroad that the bridges are the restriction on the rail line for
Mhm.
heavier cargo.
Mhm.
So then when you see equipment, I put money to replace our 2005 Chevy pickup, which is not roadworthy anymore. We can use it down at the port just for plowing, but that needs to be replaced. And then we have 2 dump truck snow plows, and one was a 2002 and the other was a 2004. I believe one of them was more in the salt. One was used at the airport, so it wasn't in the salt as much, but currently they've been told this will be their last passing inspection without major work. So I came to Patty, and we need to replace those. When I came here, 2001, they replaced a plow that was only 17 years old, and honest to God, that looked worse than what we have here.
Mhm.
But these plows are going on 20 years, and we just sustain that. So
Steve, is this $150,000 number one that's based on quotations or research?
it's budgetary that putting together what a truck would cost and roughly a plow, you could do better than that. Depending on steel and things like that, it could, by the time you get around to purchasing this.
Well, I don't know whether, again, the town of Morristown, whether they're putting additional equipment on it, but their last plow, which was purchased within the past 12 months, was $220,000.
Yeah, Lisbon just bought theirs, and it won't be, or they ordered one, but they won't get it until next November, I believe.
Yeah.
And theirs was just, I think they were about 160.
So we must be ordering more stuff in Morristown.
It could be a bigger box. We have ours is a short box. We're not going with belly plows. We don't really need anything too elaborate. We just need good controls and everything with plows, and then you have a sander in the back. But they aren't big long bed or big boxes. So that might be something, because I know with the townships, they're always using it for road work and stuff, so to haul asphalt and stuff, probably a small box like ours wouldn't, that might have something to do with it.
Sure.
I actually said that if it's going to take until next fall, we should go ahead and bid it now. So that we have it for next, if it's not going to pass next year,
Mhm.
then we need to look at it.
Mhm.
The one thing though,
Rarely will you hear me say, go get it now.
both those plows are back here now. So the one plow was used at the airport and they've already replaced that. So our backup plan would be, we'll go with the best one. And if that fails, we've got the other one to get us through and hopefully for a while anyway, come next season, if the truck isn't here. That's kind of our plan with that.
Understood. Mhm.
Now, are those plows used to clean out the industrial park?
Mhm.
And they were out this morning when I got here.
And they're, so far they're functioning?
The plows?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're fine.
So if they don't work, let's say something happens, and we get a major storm, do we have a backup plan?
We have two, let's see. We have two plows. We have one at the port and then the truck that hauls the grain down there has a plow.
Okay.
We've never put it on there because when you're going in out of if you leave it on there and you're going in and out of the buildings, it's kind of bulky and in your way. So we've really haven't had to use it. That was always our backup plow, but it doesn't have a sander on it, but that wouldn't be, that would get us by. We could use the port plow with a sander if we had to. We have at the airport before.
I'm just thinking it's important to have that cleaned out
Mhm.
for our tenants. And I know it'd have to be early.
Mhm.
Have we used the new plow at the airport for the runway?
Yep,
Over the
they've
weekend?
used the new sweeper and I know they use it, both sweepers, they're old and they use them over the weekend and
How'd that go?
real good. Everything, no issues or anything there.
That's quite a piece of machinery.
It sure is.
Sweeper out here.
No, that
No,
would be,
no, we can't
no,
do
we
that.
can't do that.
I know that.
Will you?
Strike that.
So there, any questions on any of that?
You know, we got $1,050,000. And we're deferring. Let's subtract the, what is it? 80 something, no, not even that, for the bridge. All those items that you've deferred, other than the bridge, need to be done. But, I don't know. I just can't see it this year. But I think we need to make sure we're taking care of our tenants over there. And plan for the future on that. But at least, like you said earlier, Steve, we're able to do some capital projects that in the past couple of years we haven't. So I think you did a pretty good job putting those together.
Yeah, and I was thinking too, there might be something out there for that plow that you could get, maybe you could get a percentage of some kind of grant. That same with like there's a couple of things in there that I quite honestly, I'm not as up to speed on all the funding that's out there. I know I'm getting calls all the time about availability of port funding. And a lot of times it's after the fact or I'm too late. But I'm working with Leanne to kind of get on top of that and maybe give her this and say, what of these we might be eligible for? And I know I'm pretty well in tune with what the bridge can get and things like that and the railroad. But when it comes to the port, sometimes there's more federal money out there than I realize.
Steve, I didn't look at any of the budget information before I came in today. I wasn't able to open that material. Can you tell me where the capital project is incorporated in the stack of paper?
Do you bring that number forward on the summary sheet, Patty?
It's down at the bottom.
Is there anything like that?
Right. OBPA grant portion and capital expenditures way at the bottom.
I see it.
So that what you have under total expenses are true operating expenses. So we do, if you look at the operating income, we do have a small profit for the operating income, then adding the CRSSA. Then we have to take out our current portion of long-term debt and then our capital expenditures.
Is that what you were looking for, Chris?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Debt really isn't an option, but it's not an operating expense per se.
And capital expenses aren't either, but
Right.
but it's, you know, you need to do something of use of capital, use of funds calculation.
Now, if you look at the long-term debt recap, if we have just a minute, it's the purple and blue and orange page. You will notice that in 2023, a number of our loans, of course, all the small ones, that one, yes.
I've got mine about halfway through.
Real colorful one.
It was in there.
There it is.
You'll notice that the e-transit software is paid off next year. The $500,000 term loan has 1 year and $10,000. And if we use the money from the land sale, that will actually move that up and be paid off in 2023. The line of credit will be paid off. The fuel service, self-serve will be almost paid off. And
That's at the airport.
Yep. And everything in blue is the airport.
Mm-hmm.
And the taxable bond has been paid off. So we are making progress on a lot of the smaller items. The bigger items will be with us, but even the land mortgage for the Route 12 or Route 812 land mortgage will be done in 2027, as will the CBNA line of credit turned into a term loan. That will be gone in 2027. So we're making a good deal of progress in paying off, as will the MAPCO, if we can't pay some of these off beforehand. But as everything in blue is an airport expenditure,
Mm-hmm.
if we have, as Sam was saying earlier, the possibility of using any of this infrastructure grant for these, then we might be able to move some of these payment schedules up.
Yeah, who knows how it'll be written. I mean, probably the intention is to stimulate new disbursements, new
Right.
projects,
Mhm.
but
Exactly what we said. Yeah.
depending on how they're written.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think we need to work at paying off that stuff so we can get ahead of that. That actually is really, that would be a big boom.
Mhm.
Patty, interest expenses dropped from last year.
No,
Remember we talked about that?
yeah,
Can you just
we've,
highlight that, please?
3 years ago, we were at $587,000 in interest, and this coming year will be at 489. So we've really moved down with the interest payments also. And some of these with the bond, there's an interest payment per year. It's not a monthly payment, it's a, here it is in July payment, but they're coming down. And you've got a bit more going towards your principal now.
Good. Well, do you have more to present or more that you think we ought to know about this?
No, I think those were the high points.
Yeah,
That, I mean, on the general expense side, it's really, like Patty said, we basically we saw where we're at and where we're headed and just kept those numbers. We didn't, because there are commitments and service agreements and things that might go up a little bit, but on the general expense side, we have a good history of that. So there's not a lot of, I will say one thing on the income side. I'll know more next week. I'll be in Salt Lake City with a number of the windmill people there, and we'll nail down what we believe we're getting, and maybe there'll be more. There's some talk of that, so I'm kind of expecting more, but you just never know with that. But we've just based it on 2 projects of kind of what we see right now, but that may be real helpful there. So we've got quite an agenda for 2 days. So
as far as the budget goes, I want to take this stack of paper home and really look over it and both understand it. Let's see if I have any further questions. But at this point, I don't have any more questions. And I'm very comfortable with what you presented. Sam, are you, and Dave, are you ready to recommend this to the board if this document went forward, given what you know now?
I would say, I think so, because as long as we think we can do the capital that's in there, which sounds like you think you can anyway. So, there's a couple questions. Sam had a question on the HVAC and all that, but I think it's a good sound plan, and it's not like it's frivolous. We're trying to do the things that we need to do to make this operation continue to go forward, so.
I do too, and when you pick capital projects with a list that long, it almost doesn't matter which one you pick. They're all going to be good ones. They're all going to be money well spent. And in some measure, if we've made a step toward being able to address capital projects this year, that satisfies me. I have no capacity to judge whether it should be 75 instead of 50. But I think your point is very sound, and if we can figure out a way to do all the units or both the units, that would be wonderful. But I don't think it matters in terms of the overall architecture here.
The capital, just, and you probably don't want to hear this, but part of that is we have basically 4 months till the budget begins. If we start seeing something going the other way, there's a certain amount of discretion in that capital budget that we can use as a stopgap measure. And unfortunately, we may have to go back to dismissing or putting something off. But that having that amount in there, not that we want to spend it all, but it does, because in these times we just, but the fact that we've got 3 months, we're going to get a better feel going into that. And as much as I would like to order the plow now, I would like to probably wait till at least the middle of January or February to talk about it, just because we could say, I'm gun shy, let's say, over the future of, with bridge traffic and everything like that.
Sure. Well, I think recommending this to the board probably is the next step. Do you think?
Well, we haven't, if you want, we haven't discussed personnel.
Yep.
And most of that, I believe, we're under contractual obligations for most of it, but not all of it. And maybe some of the detailed and under each of the departments, if we want to get that detailed.
Hmm.
I think I've talked about that enough with Steve, but there's other, under personnel and maybe other changes. There may be other things we need to talk about before it goes forth to the full
Would
board.
that be done in a personnel committee meeting, or is that going to be done in finance?
It can be done as part of the budget, just so you'll know
Yeah,
what we're thinking.
it could be.
Is that something that we ought to go into executive session and address immediately?
I think so.
Yeah, because it might involve certain people and you might get, I may have to just, personnel wise.
Mhm.
That's something you want to do right now?
Would you like to
I
do
think
that?
we ought to talk
Okay.
address it right now.
What time do you have to leave?
It shouldn't be long.
Probably
I mean,
22.
Okay, we should be fine.
So I move we go into executive session.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're in executive session, we're going in. So we are back in public session, and no decisions were made in executive session. We had lengthy discussion about the budget. And we have scheduled a board meeting. Don't we have to adopt the budget at the board meeting?
Yes.
The December board.
And
Yeah.
I'm game to recommend this budget to the rest of the board. Patty, will the rest of the board receive a copy of the budget prior to the meeting?
Yes.
If it doesn't scan and doesn't open easily, give some thought to mailing a package to the,
We can do that.
We
We
can
might,
do
it's too important. We could do that.
yeah, because
And we
people-
only have those couple of changes to make.
right.
Mine open fine, but,
Yeah.
which is weird. Right?
No.
It's me that has trouble.
I'm using an Apple system. Are you
Oh,
using?
you don't know. There you go.
That may be
That
the
may be.
difference. How did you save it? As a
It was a
PDF?
PDF,
It ought to open, I would think. I
you
mean,
would think.
I open them all the
No,
time.
we can do that. That would be,
And
assuredly, everybody would have it.
it's really, I think, important, at least for the summaries, to be able to review it prior to the meeting.
Mhm.
And then you can mark it up.
Yeah.
I mean, I still,
Because you
Still have
can't
to print
you can't really digest it in the meeting.
No.
The summary is great and to the point.
Mhm.
Good. And I think this expresses the hopes, wishes, and aspirations. It's very good.
very well
I
put.
do too.
We'll call for the meeting to adjourn. You've made the motion. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
The meeting's adjourned.
Thank you.